started interestingly as a revenue records, could result in a contemporary capture of political history. It itself so interesting, because all about maps we know these days is the Google Maps, we're most obsessed with. A back journey, because writing a book, and we know it in its final form, but I'm sure there is a whole lot of journey. I just want to understand a little bit about if you could share the trigger point and the entire process of finding that publisher. Was it easy to convince them on a topic which is so technical at the same time, and also socio-cultural? It has those aspects as well.
Thank you for this question. You see, the process of writing was that when you start looking at the maps, when you put all these maps together, and then you start looking at, this is 47, this is 50, this is 52. You start looking at what are the changes that have taken place between any two successive maps. And what I started doing was that I started writing a weekly column on various aspects of what are the changes that are visible. For example, you see Hyderabad, and you find that Hyderabad is going to change after some time, or Telangana or Madras. So you start reading about it, and then you start writing about it. Fortunately, being the director of the academy, also got a chance to speak to at a lot of forums. So that's how it started. It wasn't difficult finding a publisher, because fortunately for me, nobody else has written on this. I thought it's a subject many people would have explored, but surprisingly, no one else has looked at the history of India from this perspective. So it was so I didn't have a major problem in finding the publisher.
So you said maps are not set in stone; they are very fluid, and
yeah.
So is the dynamic of the socio-cultural identity of people. And all these maps that we see, that the one that we see right now, does it further kind of metaphor? Does it evolve further into a next phase? How does the evolving dynamic, social dynamic, impact the existing maps?
What will happen is that maps will keep on changing. You see, because what is going to happen is that after we have the next round of census, there will be a major, I would say, a major demand to reduce the asymmetry amongst Indian states. Because if you compare Indian states, like you have UP, which is very, very large, and after the next census, the way population is growing in our country, I mean, UP will have more than 100 MPs, and states in the south, including Maharashtra, we will lose some MPs. So there will be the demand for a new reorganization of states. So all these things will keep on happening. So I don't see this. I don't see this process. I mean, there's no full stop. There's no full stop, because once we have accepted that there can be two Telugu-speaking states, I mean, there will be a demand for two Maratha-speaking states, two Marathi-speaking states, two Bengali-speaking states. So it's not a demand which we'll be able to dismiss offhand.
So how do you see the linguistic, economic, sociological, which one is the most dominating factor when it comes to...
It keeps changing. It keeps changing. You see, what happens is that sometimes language comes to the fore, sometimes religion comes to the fore, sometimes ethnicity comes to the comes ahead, sometimes it's a regional aspiration. For instance, in Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand, which were primarily tribal to begin with, it was the regional identity which came up. In Uttarakhand, it was the OBC issue which came to the fore. So different points of time, you will have different triggers. So it will be very wrong for me to say that language is the only force, or religion is the only force, or region is the only force. It depends on what triggers at some point of time. What is the trigger point? That is the main challenge.
Right. So here on, are there any more works in the pipeline? Because this is such a vast subject, such a complex subject.
Yes, there are.
A census is maybe coming soon.
Because one of the things that is happening is that there will be issues like Gorkhaland, Bodoland, and all of these demands which will be there. But these are demands which cannot be fulfilled because the population I mean, for instance, the Gorkhas are not even in a majority in Darjeeling district, or the area which they claim to be there. The demographic change has taken place. Bodoland, for instance, Cooch Behar, was at one point of time Cooch dominated, but after a lot of migration has happened, now it's Bengali dominated, so it cannot happen. Therefore, the territorial councils, language councils under the 5th schedule and 6th schedule, they will perhaps become more important.
My final question, we just have few seconds left, is that boundaries within boundaries, we call it ghettos, for example. Have you, stayed away from that? Maybe
No,
was it on purpose?
No, it was not a conscious effort to get away from anything. In fact, I have raised many issues, including the reorganization of Delhi into two UTs. The point is that I have only looked at the lines as they have been changing over the years. So my research has been focused on whatever changes the Survey of India has done from 1947 to 2019. So that's how I built my story.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. And I think we're done with this session.
Thank
The
you.
time is up. Thanks.